Offset, Art Publishing in the Caribbean, held at the National Gallery of Jamaica.
The opportunities and challenges that arise in that field, in a field that is very rapidly changing. Because as you all know, and you're all active participants in that, we are very rapidly moving from a media culture which was largely print-based to one, and to some extent also television and radio-based, to one which is increasingly shifting online. So there are significant shifts in how publishing and how critical engagement takes place. So to continue, finish off by reading the introduction that I have already finish off by reading the introduction. Hispano has written recently, from my current, and it says, opportunities and challenges in the field of art publishing. Opportunities and challenges in the field of art publishing in the Caribbean. I hope that one day we can have an event with all but not today. With a specific emphasis on journal and magazine publishing. While there is an obvious need for publications that document and reflect critically on art and culture in the Caribbean cultural sphere, few such publications have existed, and even fewer have survived for any extent of time. Okay. Some, such as Caribbean Quarterly, which is published by the University of the West Indies, Jamaica Journal, which is published by the Institute of Jamaica and Small Acts, an independent journal of cultural criticism that originated in Jamaica and is now published by Duke University, have however become well established and are widely circulated locally and internationally. And I should point out that most of these journals are not art journals per se, but are journals that look at arts and culture and history in a broader sense. Several others have recently appeared, such as Art magazine founded by Connie Bynum and Alia Huggins in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Caribbean in Transit, a new arts journal coming out of George Mason University. And others are in the planning stages, such as Edna Manley College's John Canoe Journal, which we will hear about more also today. While this surge of activity in the field of Caribbean art publishing is very encouraging and speaks to the development of more active and broadly shared critical engagement in the Caribbean cultural sphere, the economic viability and long-term sustainability of such ventures remains a challenge, especially for those who are published within the region. New technologies, especially online publishing and social media, however, allow for these ventures to reposition themselves and to become lively forums for dialogue, exchange, and networking, as has already happened with Small Access, SX Space, and ARC, and the initiatives of independent bloggers. The resulting dialogues are a much welcomed and needed development that is already reshaping the field of Caribbean art and facilitates new alliances and collaborations. While online publishing provides new opportunities that need to be fully tapped, it however also poses a new threat to the survival of print publications, and the question arises how the two can coexist. Overall, art publishing in the Caribbean is going through a period of significant change and takes on new roles in the development of the arts in the Caribbean sphere. This panel discussion aims to contribute to a better understanding of these changes and to the dialogues that surround them. I will now quickly introduce the panelists. I will introduce them in more detail as they come to speak. I will start to my left, your right, Dean Senior, who is one of the editors, along with Carol Annie Hamilton, who is in the audience of the new journal John Canoe from Edna Manley College. Mariel Barrow, the founding editor of Caribbean in Transit, based at George Mason University. Holly Bynum, the editor-in-chief of ARC, and the creative director of ARC, Nadia Huggins, is sitting in the audience with us. And then Kim Robinson, who is the editor of Jamaica Journal and Caribbean Quarterly, two of the veterans in this field. In fact, they are among the journals that have been in publication for the longest in the English-speaking Caribbean region. And so, among the things that they will talk about is the history, context, and the general objectives and philosophies of their publication, the challenges they have faced over time, and how these have affected the development of their journal, how their journal has been received by various audiences, and how this has shaped its outlook, and then the role that these publications play in the development of Caribbean culture, and then their views also on the future of art publishing in the Caribbean. Each of the presenters will speak for approximately 10 minutes, and then we will hopefully have approximately half an hour for an open and hopefully lively discussion. We will start now with Kim Robinson, PhD, who is the editor of Caribbean Quarterly at the University of the West Indies in Mona, and also the editor of Jamaica Journal, which is published by the Institute of Jamaica. Her publications include Out of Order, and I should have said that with more emphasis, but sorry for that, Anthony Winkler and White West Indian Writing, which was published by the University of the West Indies Press in 2006, Jamaican Art, which was originally published in 1989, and republished in 2011, which she co-authored with Katrina Archer-Straw, and the children's book Tales Among Old Reading, which was published in 1992, and which she also illustrated. Her scholarly articles, short stories, and poems have been published in a number of journals and anthologies. So Kim, and I do hope you have better.
Barry asked me to speak about Jamaica Journal, and I begged her to just give me a couple of minutes to insert Caribbean Quarterly as well, but the majority of this presentation will be on Jamaica Journal. You're hearing me, okay? Alright, the Jamaica Journal was first published in 1967 by the Institute of Jamaica. The main function of the Institute, according to its mission statement, is, quote, to foster and encourage the development of culture, science, and history in the national interest. I think it's fair to say that the IOJ, the Institute of Jamaica, regards Jamaica Journal as an indispensable tool in fulfilling this mandate. The first editor was Alex Bradley Stahl, who wrote in his foreword of Volume 1, Number 1, that the Jamaica Journal sets out to act as a magnet as well as a directional device. It sets out to provide a home in its pages to all Jamaicans and some non-Jamaicans who create, whether in literature, art, literary criticism, or historical and scientific thought. We hope to explore new directions, new lines of thought to help in the essential task of creating standards valid to our own experience. That was the mandate as set out in 1967, and it has pretty much remained the same since. In the 44 years of its history, the journal, under the direction of its editors and the guidance of the Council of the Institute, has established itself for the publication of the highest quality. The journal is dedicated to the documentation and dissemination of information on various aspects of Jamaica's life and culture. Much of this material has represented the results of original research on topics which have never been previously documented. As a result, the journal has become a valuable, definitive, and invaluable reference source for students, researchers, and librarians, as well as being for the public a collector's item. In all of this, the journal has become somewhat of an institution in itself. It is regarded as representing quality, academic integrity, and the best of what Jamaicans have to offer in the spheres of the arts, science, and technology, history, and life overall. We aim to have a wide range of material to satisfy a wide range of interests, from archaeology to popular culture. We seek currency as well as history, and we certainly welcome controversy. Articles must be interesting, they must be informative, they must be academically sound, yet at the same time they must be appealing and accessible to the general public. This combination of academic rigor and accessibility is not easy to achieve. So producing a successful issue depends on attracting the right contributors, those who are experts within their particular fields, but also those who can write cleanly, simply, and entertainingly. The prospect of taking on the editing of this seminal publication, which I took on in 2004, was an awesome one. The awesomeness of the task was, however, somewhat mitigated by the amount of goodwill that I encountered when I first started as editor and that I continue to encounter. I can say without exaggeration that most, if not all, the persons that I've ever approached to contribute or to review an article, from renowned academics to members of parliament to business magnates, have agreed without hesitation because it is the Jamaica Journal. Or designers here, illustrators, photographers, and printers, not to mention editors, have over the years agreed to accept reduced fees because it is the Jamaica Journal. To suggest that for the team this has been a labor of love would not be an exaggeration. The goodwill that I encountered in seeking the participation of all the team members is due in large part to the efforts of the previous editors in the journal's history. Each editor naturally put his or her individual stamp on the character of the publication. I think it's fair to say that the period regarded by many as the golden years of the journal, other than the pioneer years under the stewardship of Alex Gradusov, who was ably assisted by Sylvia Winter, his partner, the golden years would have been the years in which Olive Sr. was at the helm. Sr. enabled by a very supportive council at the Institute, which approved the establishment of a separate semi-autonomous publications division, and enabled also by her own creativity and outstanding interest and expertise in Jamaican culture, was able to consistently produce high-quality issues on a quarterly basis, thereby expanding and maintaining a large subscription base of some 500 subscribers, and also establishing credibility with advertisers. The journal had started off in 1967 as a quarterly. Frequency of publication dwindled to 1 to 2 issues per year in the difficult years of 1976 to 82, returned to 4 issues per year in the period 1982 to 89 under Olive Sr., then gradually fell off again, appearing sporadically between 1989 and 2001, then disappearing again. Delays in publication over the years were often due to budgetary constraints on the part of IOJ and lack of advertising support. So in 2003, I was approached to take on the task of resuscitating the journal with the mandate of producing 2 issues per year. And my first issue of JJ appeared in April 2004. I have so far been able to produce 12 issues, so if you do the math, that's not quite 2 issues per year, but close. Current status. So after the lapse of a few years in which publication of the journal was sporadic and non-existent, JJ has gained its momentum and has re-established itself as a high-quality publication promoting Jamaican literature, science, and art in accordance with IOJ's overall mandate. Thanks to an excellent external production team and with the full support of a dynamic and involved editorial advisory committee, we have been able to consistently produce issues of a high quality. Most, if not all, of the issues that I have edited have included at least one feature on the visual arts. Editing JJ over the last 7 years has been a most rewarding experience in terms of positive feedback. One of the spin-offs of this feedback and the re-establishment of JJ in the public view is that I'm now accumulating a bank of articles in contrast to 7 years ago, when the general atrophy of the journal had extended to potential contributors. Also, past subscribers who had let their subscriptions lapse due to irregular publication and irregular mailing have begun to subscribe again. The subscriber base had dwindled to 30 in 2004, and it would now gone back up to over 500. Retail sales have steadily improved, with 4 of the issues produced in the last 7 years now being sold out, so much so that we increased our regular print run from 1,500 to 2,000 copies, and in 1 or 2 issues we've gone up to 3,000. The other major development which has taken place has been the digitization of all back issues of the journal. The Digital Library of the Caribbean, DLOC, an online open access digital library project of the University of Florida, launched the Jamaica Journal Historical Collection online in November 2009. DLOC's policy, quote, is to request non-exclusive educational distribution rights in perpetuity for content that they digitize for their partners. DLOC provides access to scholars, students, and citizens around the world via the online digital library. As DLOC has stated, making these issues available to the public will increase the general awareness of the Institute and improve access to the valuable information that has been published by a foundational journal in Caribbean Studies. As a result of that DLOC digitization, JJ had at least 90,000, I was trying to get an updated figure, page views in a year. And IOJ was early this year given an award of excellence by DLOC. In addition, EBSCO Information Services, a leading international service provider of subscriptions, e-resource management tools, databases, and related services for all types of libraries and research organizations, has been licensed to upload current issues of JJ onto its website in the last 4 years. IOJ also has an arrangement with ProQuest, which is, I think, at the moment under negotiation. What then are the challenges? The main ones are as follows. First of all, financial constraints. IOJ is committed to keeping the journal alive and has been willing to subsidize some 60%, some occasionally higher than that, of the cost of producing each issue. However, this may not be sustainable in the long term, especially since, as a government entity, it has been subject to budget cuts. The second main challenge is staffing. JJ suffers from a lack of full-time staff to push various initiatives. Currently, those who work on JJ, including myself, do it either on a part-time freelance consultancy basis or in the case of IOJ staff as one of many responsibilities. The production of each issue of the journal is a major editorial effort requiring a huge investment in terms of time and energy. Similarly, IOJ's permanent staff members who are responsible for marketing and sales must squeeze in these responsibilities between innumerable other equally important tasks. The current arrangement is undoubtedly unsustainable in the long term. JJ requires and deserves full-time staff. However, financial realities preclude this option, certainly in the short to medium term. For the above reasons, it's not currently possible to consider publishing more than 2 issues per year. This is a disadvantage in terms of market presence, subscriptions, and advertising. Advertising support, earlier I wasn't timing myself. How am I doing?
2 minutes more.
2 minutes more? Okay. All right, advertising support has not been consistent, which has sometimes resulted in frustrating delays going to press. We've been told that if the journal came out more frequently, the advertising presence would be stronger. However, it's a catch-22 situation. We have also attempted to get corporate sponsorship, and we've actually had just one steady corporate sponsor who, no matter what, will give us a full-page ad, that being Pan Jamaican. Other than that, corporate sponsorship has been quite iffy. Print costs have held steady in the last 3 to 4 years. However, this is not something that we're banking on remaining. We have at various stages explored overseas printing options, but so far the governmental red tape involved in procurement, shipping and brokerage has been a disincentive. Marketing and distribution. Although various marketing thrusts have been initiated by IOJ, Jamaica Journal is still not as visible as it deserves to be. Local distribution is frustratingly inadequate. Overseas distribution is practically non-existent. The visibility overseas has been certainly improved by the DLOC project. However, a way needs to be found to generate revenue from this exposure. Okay, so in the short to medium term, we're trying to increase advertising support, and we're trying to find a good overseas distributor. I'm jumping because I want to get in Caribbean Quarterly. All right. Okay. Whether the new free access arrangement with DLOC will counteract our efforts to have more subscribers from overseas institutions remains to be seen. IOJ needs to balance such welcome opportunities for overseas exposure with income generation concerns. In the future, in the medium term, Jamaica Journal must eventually, inevitably, become available as an online publication in order to reach the wider world. I feel strongly, though, that Jamaica Journal should not be exclusively web-based. New issues should be published online as well as in print in order to satisfy different markets. IOJ has been upgrading its website, and its design is supposed to be able to accommodate the publication of new issues of the journal online as well as provision of access to back issues. The website will also incorporate a space for feedback and discussion of articles, and this new dynamism should generate new levels of interest in the journal and hopefully result in significant increases in readership and subscription levels. In the long term, I feel that Jamaica Journal should ideally return to being a quarterly publication. An increased frequency of presence in the market will encourage greater advertising support and will increase readership. That means that Jamaica Journal will require a full-time editor and full-time support staff. And I think only then will the potential of the journal be fully realized. All right, Caribbean Quarterly. Caribbean Quarterly is one of the oldest periodicals in the English-speaking Caribbean. It is regarded as the flagship publication, or one of them, of the University of the West Indies, and was launched by the Department of Extramural Studies in 1949 to be a platform from which research findings and general knowledge could be effectively disseminated within the campus and non-campus territories of the university. Rex Nettleford was editor of Caribbean Quarterly for 40 years. Following his sudden death in February 2010 and the subsequent retirement of his managing editor, Veronica Salter, in September of that year, the Vice Chancellor felt that the time was opportune for a revamping of the journal with a view to refreshing and reinforcing its position as a premier journal of Caribbean culture. As a result, so I started as editor in October 2010. CQ has now been redesigned in a fresh new format, but with a commitment to retain the old tradition of rich content and the original commitment to regionalism established since 1949. The new tagline for CQ is a journal of Caribbean culture, and the theme is we're trying to make it more, to get back to what it used to be in terms of focusing on Caribbean culture. In the wider sense of the words, but yes, culture. So CQ is dedicated to exploring all aspects of the culture of the Caribbean. It is an outlet for the publication of results of research into and considered views on and creative expressions of matters Caribbean. CQ publishes scholarly articles, personal and critical essays, public lectures, poetry, fiction, book reviews. A lively diversity of types of writing reflecting the diversity of Caribbean culture. All scholarly articles are peer-reviewed, as are Jamaica Journal articles. But as with Jamaica Journal, we encourage accessibility and discourage excessive use of academic jargon. Our aim is to produce high-quality material that can be understood by well-educated people from any discipline. We see CQ not as a forum for narrow, single-discipline pieces, but rather for pieces which reflect the interdisciplinarity of Caribbean cultural studies. Pieces which are rigorous, but with every piece written in a clear and better accessible style. We have started featuring artists' work in CQ. The lead story for the March issue was a piece by Barbados-based Jane Bryce within our audience on the Vincentian artist Hopes. And in the June issue, we introduced a feature called Artist's Voice, which gives a brief introduction to an emerging artist's work by allowing them space to show a few pieces of their work and to speak about them in their own words. The June issue featured the work of Robert Joyett from St. Vincent. How will CQ be different from other UWI journals? Other UWI journals are fairly conventionally academic in style, tone, and content. CQ aims to be different, would have greater diversity of types of writing, as I said earlier. Okay, by maintaining a focus on Caribbean culture but encouraging a lively diversity of types of writing, CQ aims to carve its niche, giving this journal a special place in the family of journals at UE and in the global arena. All right, thanks.
Thank you. We have now been joined by Annie Paul, our next panelist actually, who is a writer and critic based at the University of the West Indies, Mona, where she's head of the publication sector at the Sir Arthur Lewis Institute of Social and Economic Studies. She's managing editor there of the journal Social and Economic Studies. Annie Paul was one of the founding editors of Small Axe, of which she remains an associate editor, and has been published in international journals and magazines such as Slavery and Abolition, Our Journal, South Atlantic Quarterly, Wasafiri, Kalaloo, and Bomb. Annie is the author of the blog Active Voice, and her website is anniepaul.com. You can also follow her on Twitter at Annie Paul. So she's a very active user of social media.
I just first want to show you the journal before I start talking about it. This was number 1, this was number 2, right? Started in, these were published in '97. And this is number 6, I think. You know, you can see how it's evolving over time. It's changing as we began to get more resources. These 2 were issues that actually focused on art in the Caribbean. This one is, if you can recognize it, a spoof on Edna Manley's Negro Aroused. And the journal underwent a major redesign about 3 or 4 years ago, and now looks completely different. Well, not completely, but quite. So let me put these back, and then I'll get it. Also, this is a brochure that we introduced the journal with in '96. We put out this brochure, and we used an image I decided to use this particular image on the cover, which at the time the Queen was visiting visiting Jamaica, and the night before she was to make a visit to the University of the West Indies, somebody graffitied this on the front gate, on the front wall, Nania Phoebe Queen. It said, you know, where it says University of the West Indies, they put 2 in front of the and said to the University of the West Indies, Nania Phoebe Queen. So I thought that was an appropriate way to introduce Small Axe. So Small Axe was and is an ambitious attempt to produce a Southern forum that challenges received paradigms and assumptions about the Caribbean. The journal was the first leg of this larger project. Its critical intentions were announced by its name and explained in its mission statement. If you are a big tree, we are a small axe. As this Jamaican proverb, popularized by Bob Marley, suggests, a small axe is an instrument of criticism. This is what our journal aims to be, a small axe. End of quote. That was a quote from the brochure. The journal was in search of a new vocabulary of criticism that would illuminate the twilight zone that scholarship in the South faced. A moment, quote, when older paradigms are no longer plausible and new ones have not yet asserted themselves. End of quote. It also wanted, quite simply, to intervene in such critical debates and rethinkings that might be taking place in or around the a Southern forum that challenges received paradigms and assumptions about the Caribbean. The journal was the first leg of this larger project. Its critical intentions were announced by its name and explained in its mission statement. If you are a big tree, we are a small axe. As this Jamaican proverb, popularized by Bob Marley, suggests, a small axe is an instrument of criticism. This is what our journal aims to be, a small axe. End of quote. That was a quote from the brochure. The journal was in search of a new vocabulary of criticism that would illuminate the twilight zone that scholarship in the South faced. A moment, quote, when older paradigms are no longer plausible and new ones have not yet asserted themselves, end of quote. It also wanted, quite simply, to intervene in